Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Play, Pause, Rewind. This is our big episode number 40, and we have a very good and exciting TV show to talk about this time. But before we do that, Niles, how have you been the last 2 weeks since our last episode?
All right. I was trying to think of a joke saying I was traumatized, but I'm not traumatized lately.
That's good.
Just traumatized from a lack of content. No, there's way too much content to get through.
So much.
No, I've been doing well. Just staying very busy, and got some exciting stuff on the horizon that I'm very much looking forward to with friends and all that. What about you, Dylan? How are you?
Yeah, pretty much the same. Had a fun weekend, excited for the near future as well, due to social stuff that we both have going on. Won't elaborate on that here, but it's going to be fun. And let's see what else we had. Comic-Con was this week. There was a lot of big news to come out of that. Did you see the plethora of content coming up from Marvel alone?
I saw some screenshots and I'm like, man, that's so far off in the distance. I don't even care.
Well, that's the thing. That's the wild part, because it's not. There are 9 Marvel releases in 2023 alone.
Oh my God. I thought we had a lot this year.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's like TV and film, but it's like that's.
And you guys can pump the brakes a little bit. We don't need this much, but whatever.
But the Black Panther 2 trailer dropped, and that looks pretty incredible. It looks really good.
I didn't check that one out. I'll have to go watch it after this.
Yeah, but lots of content on that front. Wild real world news thing. The Denver Police Department carried out a mass shooting of their own in downtown Denver. Like 12 days ago. So that's
what the fuck. I didn't hear about that.
You didn't hear about that? No names, but we know one of the people who was shot. He's okay, but we know someone.
Oh.
Yeah,
gotcha.
So there was a guy who apparently had a gun pulled on the Denver PD, and they just shot into the crowd down at the Loto bars. So
awesome. That's great time to be alive.
And sorry if you don't like us talking about politics on the show, because we're going to be doing a lot of it this week, because we're talking about The Boys. And The Boys is a great show. If you haven't watched it, we'll do non-spoilers for a few minutes, and then we're going to go head first in spoilers. I would recommend you don't watch this if you haven't watched The Boys, because it's really good. Every episode of this show is amazing, like every single one. So
100%. Yeah. Like not even just this, because we're going to be talking mainly about the 3rd season today in this episode. Season 3, it just finished a couple weeks ago. But there have been, I would argue season 1, season 2, season 3, excellent. All of them. They are excellent in their own rights. And if you have not checked out this series, 100% recommend that you do. It's on Amazon Prime.
So. Yeah, I would also recommend it with the decent caveat of trigger warnings for extreme gore and violence, sexual assault, suicide, and everything. Trigger warnings for everything, because it's all here. But it's really great. And it is an adaptation of the Garth Ennis comic of the same name. Maybe we'll talk about comic comparisons a little bit later on. And it's on Amazon Prime, like you said, which is ironic given the subject matter of this show. But it stars Jack Quaid, Aaron Moriarty, Carl Urban, Anthony Starr, Laz Alonso, Timur Capone, Karen Fukuhara, Jensen Ackles, and like a lot more. It's a really big ensemble. And this season picks up right where season 2 left off. It seems like they're in a pretty good place. Huey is working for a congresswoman. The boys have gone straight, and it seems like they're making like progress, right? Like things are going really well. They're in charge of like sort of mitigating collateral damage from superheroes, and it seems like they're doing good work. But things go to shit pretty quick, as you would expect. It's The Boys. That's how it goes. And so it goes from there. But non-spoiler thoughts, I think this might be the best season of The Boys. I don't know if you agree, but
yeah, I don't know. It's tough to say which one's really the best, but I think, with everything that they're building up in the previous seasons, they are really hitting their stride here. Like, I thought season 2 was really good, but this one it just came out firing on all cylinders, and like the narrative is excellent. The like character development and character growth is super interesting, and like the commentaries, like this show, there's so many different ways that you can approach The Boys and just like find something new to pull out of it. It's one of those great pieces of work that's just like, it's just multifaceted. It's got just so much stacked into it, packed in. And this season, it's just got so much great political commentary, social commentary, pop culture commentary. It's just littered with so much great stuff. And I think this season, and I mean the show in general, is just like such an exceptional example of how strong storytelling can be, and how you can still squeeze in all this great commentary and all this great discussion of relevant topics that's important for our everyday life into like a superhero show or just a show in general.
Yeah, it's I've said a couple times over the last few months, it's like The Boys wields its social commentary with the subtlety of like a sledgehammer. And it works really well. It's very explicit in what it's about. It's very anti-American imperialism, anti-capitalist, anti-corporate culture, anti sort of the like fake wokeness that a lot of companies have.
Yes.
And it's kind of funny because like, you don't really see the go woke, go broke comments for this show for whatever reason. It seems like, I don't know, maybe it scared those people away early on, but it is like, in terms of like progressive political commentary, this is way more progressive than like the Marvel movies that people always complain about that shit with, which is really funny. It's like Marvel cast a woman in a role and all those people like, oh my God. But the Boys is like explicitly calling those people like, you're a stupid fucking murderer. And they're
you're a stupid little incel in the bottom of your mom's basement, and you're scared of the guy running the convenience store down the block from you.
Exactly. Like last season, there was that. It was like a 3-minute scene with no dialogue, and it was just tackling the very real subject matter of how bad actors, in this case a literal Nazi, used memes to radicalize this like isolated white man, and he went and killed someone. And it's like, that happens every day in America. Every fucking day that happens. So it does it so well. And it's interesting because it is such a progressive show in terms of its theme. And then it has the most like raunchy, foul-mouthed like people in it. And it's the like most violently crude show as well. And it balances that so perfectly.
Oh, it does. It's like every episode and every season just goes balls to the wall. Absurd. Like, it's just, it doesn't hold back. It's like, yes, we're just gonna exactly go like you said, take the sledgehammer, break it down. And the show, it's really not afraid to be authentic or real or genuine or uncensored. Like, and I think that's one of the best things about this show too, is that it shows the consequences of the Soup's actions, and not even just the Soups, but just like everyday people doing these things, and the consequences of those actions, and like how that like ripple effects across our society. It's not just like isolated, like, oh yeah, I ran over this one woman and killed her, and then now 3 years later Huey is heavily involved in like the superhero dynamic of society. And it's like, wow, just because of one small event, all this other cascading bullshit happened. And it's like, it's not afraid to back down. Like, yeah. And kind of like what you were saying too, with like Marvel, they'll take kind of like one step in the right direction with progressivism and being like, yeah, let's add some more LGBTQ representation and all this stuff. And it's like, that's great. Thank you. But they really don't like, sometimes they take one step forward, they take 2 steps backwards.
They include the like gay character in one scene who has 3 lines, and then they cut his scene out for the China release. And the Boys season 2 really lampooned a lot of that very explicitly. You remember there was the whole like girls get it done thing.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And it was making fun of that specific scene in Avengers Endgame where like all of the female characters like show up on screen for like one shot, and it's like almost all of them were like secondary characters or glorified extras in some cases. And it's like, oh wow, Marvel, that's really pathetic, guys.
You have like, wow, that's
because like up to that point they only had 2 female main characters. It was like Black Widow and Captain Marvel, and all of the rest of them were like side characters. It's like, oh boy.
And then now they're all like, oh yeah, don't worry, she's got help. And then it's like, what the fuck is Mantis gonna do? She's gonna
hey, she can control people's like minds and stuff, but
yeah, it's true.
But still, it's like it takes shots at the very transparently like fake pandering a lot of companies do. It's like when Pride Month rolls around, all the companies change their corporate logos to rainbows, and then the second Pride Month ends, that's gone.
Yep. All of a sudden, the color just drains from them.
Yeah. Performative allyship is what it's making fun of.
Yeah. It's just sorry on that. I don't mean to derail us, but like there's this one video that I always think of whenever I hear about like the, Pride Month and how just like corporations just join in on the fad. It's like there's this video. It's just really funny where it's just like this woman just be like, "Hi, gay. We love gay. For the rest of the month, we're offering 20% off of all of our gay products. And if you can show that you're gay, then we'll give you an extra discount." It's just like, oh, it's so funny. I'll have to send it to you, but like, I didn't mean to derail.
Please do. That's really funny.
It's so funny. Like, but that's how companies act. They join in, they bandwagon on these trends, and
because it's profitable now. They know.
Yep.
The social tides have shifted. Not in the political sphere, I guess, but in the actual social sphere. And we should talk about what's going on in Congress and Supreme Court right now, because that is thematically exactly what this show is about. But and we'll do that in spoilers, I guess. But
yes,
it's amazing and unsubtle political and social commentary across the board. All the actors like crush it and have the best time. The characters are great. And one thing I love about The Boys is there's like you always even see the humanity in the worst people. They're even the most evil. Like Homelander is a monster, but the show doesn't just treat him as the bad guy. It's like we've been shown, how does a man become this way? We see his insecurities and like everything that makes him this way. So there's like the teeniest bit of you that kind of feels bad for him, and then he'll like rip a person in half or say something super racist. It's like, never mind.
Yeah, right. It works both ways too. Like the boys, the group of boys. Butcher is a terrible person, but like you want him to get his revenge and kill superheroes. Like you just want to see that happen, because
you do.
You were such a badass, and of the evils, I will take you over the bigger evil. This kind of I feel like a debate that everyone's having in their heads. But this show feels super relevant. It's important to our everyday lives. Like, if you haven't watched it, I don't know why you're listening to this episode. But
yeah, should we just get started into spoilers?
Yeah, let's do it. We're kind of dancing around some stuff, so let's dive on in. All right, where should we start?
I guess we should start with some political commentary.
The light stuff.
Stuff. If apparently some people in the audience did not realize this until recently, which may be why the go woke, go broke comments didn't start coming in. But guys, Homelander is Trump.
Yep.
Very transparently, he is Trump. Because he has like some of those xenophobic and like white centric tendencies, but for the most part, he's usually capitalizing on that for his own personal image or fame. Like he does. like I remember the scene in season 2 that I loved where he and Ryan and Stormfront are all together, and then Stormfront is like leaning over and she's talking to Ryan, and he's like, yeah, people don't want us to exist. It's called white genocide. And it cuts to Homelander, and even he's just like, yeah.
I'm not quite there yet, but
yeah.
Yeah, that scene is super potent, and like, yeah, Homelander is literally Trump, there's even like, at the very least, he's an authoritarian or a fascist or a dictator, like it's very clear what the political commentary is here in this season, because he's like, he's basically become the face of Vought in name and like in rank. Like,
because he supplants Stan Edgar through the subterfuge. But I will say he's not exactly Trump. He is what Trump supporters think Trump is. Because you know how when they make art of Trump, he's like jacked and he's super strong. It's like Trump is like really like an old, fat, greasy man. And so Homelander is what Trump supporters wish Trump was.
That he could just kill his enemies at will. And I mean, if they can make it even like more on the nose this season too, like a pivotal part of the season, I think, is like Homelander's relationship with the media and how the media kind of gets stories manipulated, and it changes the narrative, and it's like, it's the spin factor or whatever. And Homelander literally in this season is calling the press or the media the enemy, just like Trump.
Right. But also he's simultaneously using the very obvious Fox News stand-in to change the narrative of his relationship with Stormfront. He's like, oh, I'm just a man who fell for the wrong woman, just a man who fell for the wrong one, blah, 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 blah. He's and I love the Tucker Carlson stand-in they have on that network. He's like very clearly a more fit Tucker Carlson.
He's not as like terrible as the real life Tucker Carlson, but he's still a piece of shit.
Well, we've only just been introduced to him. There will be Tucker Carlson didn't used to be as bad as Tucker Carlson is today. He built up to that point over time. He was always a piece of shit. Don't get me wrong. He's always been a monster, but he's the worst monster now.
I did appreciate that in this season. They, kind of implied that Tucker Carlson takes it up the ass, with the whole him and Ashley dynamic. They were
I forgot about that. And
she just kind of whips out a dildo and he's like, oh, I'm into it.
Oh yes, I do remember that. Just to be clear too, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're super homophobic, maybe
maybe don't be against the values
if that's
you're embracing.
If that's what you're into, then support people's rights, whatever.
But we're really focusing on the media here.
Yes, but every season has had this political commentary. Last season was even really explicit too, because Stormfront's like, people love what I have to say, they just don't like the word Nazi, and it's like that's it's very on the nose with its American politics. But this season really brings home the political themes. It's like, also it touches on something that's like super pressing right now, is that you cannot make societal change from within the system when your only avenue is controlled opposition, which is that's what Victoria Newman is, because we find out she is the adopted daughter of Stan Edgar and a superhero herself, and or a soup herself, not hero, but and she's only really letting the boys go after like low level guys, right? And I just can't help but think about how oh my God, a Discord thing is popping off. I just can't help but think about how similar it is to like the Democratic Party right now, where it's like SCOTUS is just stripping away rights left and right, and the Dems are like, guys, Roe v. Wade is on the line this November. It's like, motherfucker, it's on the line right now. Like, do your job. But they don't want to do their job because they are controlled opposition. They serve the same corporate masters as the Republican Party. So, they're not going to do anything. And that's how politics in the boys is as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that's so true. And it's especially relevant to our society. And, I remember an immortal technique quote. He's a rapper, and I think it was like, you like all these like people, they have great intentions of changing the system from within, joining it in, and like really trying to change it from within. But what you don't realize is that even if you try to change the system from within, it's a system that's going to eventually change you, because there's only you. You're one factor, and then you have all these other factors that are influencing you, and exerting their influence and control. And if you have, like, it's all great and well and good if you're like, I need to like get a bill through Congress to support reproductive healthcare rights, and that's excellent. Like, we would love to see that, but you got to convince at least 100 senators to join in with you, and like then you also got to like make sure it passes the House, and it's got to get
House first and Senate.
I'm getting it all mixed up. But, it's like you have it is like the system is oppressive, and especially when the controlled opposition exists, it makes it 10 times harder for sure.
Well, and then you have what I was about to say. You have to make compromises, because like you said, you're only one cog in the machine. Like, let's take a politician like AOC, who is one of the few actual progressives we have in the federal Congress, right? She's one of 535 Congress people, and her own party attacks her instead of the right. So like, how much can you do from within that system? She does shit. She gets shit done, but like,
she's awesome. Yeah.
But there's that angle, and then you have and we get a lot of that with Starlight in this as well. Huey is doing it on the political front briefly, but Starlight is within the Seven, within Vought, and she is even empowered to lead the team, and she's making progress and changes, and then it's all ripped away, and Homelander just reassumes control. So it's like, you cannot change an entire system individually by yourself from within. It's not possible, like you were saying.
It's all about compromise.
And she realizes that, and she quits.
Yeah. And I'm glad she did. It opens up some more stuff for her. But, I think the one big theme of this season too, when we're talking about the political commentary, is the idea of populism and, kind of just like fascism to a certain extent too. But, they're both kind of one and the same in this discussion here. But,
right-wing populism is fascism.
Basically. And, I think like what this show really kind of highlighted is, especially like that final scene, which we'll talk about too in a little bit. Like, I don't want to dive into it too much right now, but, people are so susceptible to populism and populist ideas. And it is quite interesting how quickly people are ready to forget, like, human decency and treating other people like how you want to be treated, just because you now fit in the majority. Just because the guy who's in charge looks like you, he talks like you, he appears like you, so you're safe. You can do whatever you want. Anyone who's outside of your bubble is now the enemy. Right. And it's like, populism is unfortunately a scourge of our political systems that honestly feels endemic.
Yeah, and it is, because it's so effective, because and this ties into the other main target of the show's commentary, capitalism, because most people's lives are really hard. And why are they hard? Because of capitalism. The broader systems have been designed to keep you suffering or in poverty or whatever. And someone like Homelander or Trump or Hitler or any of these other like far right leaders, that the reason they have appeal is they come along and say, you are right to feel this way, and it's this person who's doing it to you. It's not the system. Don't look over here. It's this guy. And that's why it's so dangerous, because there's like a kernel of truth. Like, the person's life does suck. They are having trouble, and that is weaponized. And inherent like biases that people have are weaponized to scapegoat someone else. And this show really critiques capitalism a whole lot, and commodification. And it often uses pretty transparent parallels to the MCU and Disney as a means of doing that. And I think it does it pretty effectively.
So. I would agree. But yeah, the whole capitalism and commodification commentaries, super interesting. Love that stuff.
Yeah, but we talked about the media a little bit already, and how the media sort of creates how people can weaponize the media to create narratives that do their own ends. And how public figures sort of can, make you think whatever they want. But on the flip side of that, I thought it was really interesting that Starlight weaponizes the media and her fame as well to get the truth out about what's going on at Vought and the Seven. And this is an example of she is using her privileged position to speak truth to power. And not everyone believes her, but a lot of people do. And if she didn't have the fame that Vought, I guess, like unintentionally gave her, or they mistakenly gave her, then she would have been killed. Like Homelander would have killed her, like he killed her friend Supersonic.
Yeah, that was brutal too. But yeah, I thought that was super interesting too. And, it's, again, relevant to our time, our modern era, when everyone is on social media and, one person is saying one thing, you can go online and say another thing. And it was interesting how she was able to weaponize that. But, it was also on the flip side of that, the whole thing, like she weaponized her fame and her social media to do this, but like, the minute it was like it's like it felt like textbook, like the minute she leaves the Seven, the minute she starts to like raise questions in the public eye, Vought instantly starts to attack her. They turn on her and they start to ask questions about like her nonprofit. That's like
exactly
and her nonprofit's like all about like helping house like trafficked teens or something like that. And then it's like, oh, but what if she's trafficking the teens? Like all these kids go through her system and we don't know where they go. And it's like, wow, that feels very similar to something. Where have I heard that before? Oh, QAnon.
Yeah. Yep. No, it's again, the social commentary, not subtle, but it's still good. But apparently it was too subtle for some people, which is the funniest part. Like,
really?
Well, the people who didn't realize Homelander was a bad guy until this season.
Yeah, those people.
It was like, how he fell in love with the Nazi, a literal fucking Nazi. How did you not know he was the bad guy?
Yeah. He gets upset when she dies, and like,
and she kills herself this season, and that's good because that's Nazis should die. It was good when that happened in World War II when they died.
It absolutely was.
Yeah. And it's good when that Richard Spencer guy got punched in the face on a bus for dressing as a Nazi. He wore a Nazi uniform in public, and someone just beat the shit out of him, and it was awesome.
Good, as he should. Yeah, get the shit beaten out of him.
Yeah, just so you all know in the audience, anyone who is publicly displaying swastikas, that is violence. Anything anybody does against them is just self-defense. They have already attacked.
Yeah. Anyways, we'll talk about the media just a little bit longer because there's also I thought it was also interesting how Homelander and Vought in general would use the media, and like it was again reflective of how Trump and other populist leaders respond to moments of crisis. The minute it starts, what does Homelander do when there's a supervillain on the loose? He starts booking time slots on Sunday talk shows so he can say the situation is under control and encourage people to go spend their money and go outside and everything. And it's like, dude, but you're the superhero. You should be handling the situation. Why are you going around doing all this stuff? And it's like, I guess it's just that whole concept of like, as long as you're out there controlling the conversation, you'll always maintain your grip on power and maintain the narrative.
You know what I just realized? When Soldier Boy was on the loose going around causing explosions, and the way Vought and Homelander reacted in the press, that was Trump's COVID response. That's what they were talking
honestly.
about. That's what they were commenting. I don't know why I didn't make that connection until just now. But
that is a great connection, actually. Good thinking there.
But yeah, it's, oh my God, Discord is closed right now. It's closed. I turned off notifications and it's just going bloop, 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 bloop. I'm fucking annoyed. I'm sorry.
You thought you closed us? Not today.
I don't know what to do. But yeah, it's the media is really a big focus of this season. I think more than it even has been in the first 2 seasons. They talk about like, oh, you're up or down points or whatever, but we really see this season how they're using the media to sort of shift the narrative in the way they want it. They also did a parody of Zack Snyder's Justice League at the beginning.
I thought that was so funny. Oh,
that was so really funny. Yeah. But they cast Charlize Theron to play Stormfront.
Yeah, that was really funny too, because it was like, oh, Doctor Strange just came out. I recognize you from the end credits there. What the fuck?
Yep. but it is funny. Like in universe, it's like, oh shit, our one of our heroes turned out to be a Nazi. We can't have her in our movie anymore, and so they just rewrote the whole movie to make her the villain, and then cast a famous actress to play her.
Yeah, that was pretty great. That was funny, and yeah, I thought that was a funny way to squeeze in some more commentary on like superhero culture and pop culture in general. Like, what was it? I can't remember what the hashtag was that he used, but it was like,
release the Bork cut.
Oh, the release the Bork cut. Ugh. That's so
it's so on the nose, like everything. But changing subjects a little bit, let's talk about the biggest new character for this season. Jensen Ackles as Soldier Boy, who is very clearly the boys' take on Captain America. Much more toxically masculine, a little bit racist, a little bit sexist, probably homophobic too, but I don't remember that specifically.
He was,
he was. Real piece of shit.
Real piece of shit, definitely. Like, he was a far more realistic version of what Captain America would have been if he woke up from the ice. Because it is funny when like, it's not too many people say it anymore, but they're like, oh yeah, I just like, I'm so nostalgic for the 50s. I wish like I could have been a 50s housewife, or like, I wish I could have just been around during that time. It's like, no, you fucking don't.
Yeah,
like,
no, you don't.
It looks like a lot of fun, but also there's a lot of sexism. There's a lot of racism. Like, as a woman, you're never going to leave the house again. You're there.
You never experienced the 1950s. You saw Grease once.
You saw an episode of Mad Men and thought, that's awesome. I want to do that. Like, but like, if Captain America
on the subject of people not realizing the social commentary of a series.
Mad Men is, that's fucked up. But yeah, Captain America would have been a total piece of shit who's racist and homophobic, but he was a good man.
Well, and I love the element that he stormed Normandy for a photo op weeks after the invasion, and it's just like they built, unlike Captain America, the entire like he fought in World War II thing was a story. It was a media narrative that they created. Whereas like in like Captain America First Avenger, like he starts out that way as an actor in movies, and then he actually goes to war and does real heroism. But I thought it was so funny that one of the acts of heroism that they show Soldier Boy doing in the like little film about him was just like reading off the names of accused communists at the McCarthy hearings. I thought it was so funny.
I forgot about that one.
It's just like, there's like a film about him or something, and then there's in one scene he's at a hearing like reading a bunch of names. I'm like, oh my god.
Like, what a hero. Thank you. Thank you. But
they're like, we thank Soldier Boy for his heroic deeds, and he's just sitting in a chair reading a bunch of names.
Like, thank you so much. But yeah, I thought he was Jensen Ackles, he did a great job in this role. I thought he was an excellent villain. There weren't really any redeeming qualities about Soldier Boy. Like, I think the one thing that was like,
he's funny.
Oh yeah, he's funny, and like all the kind of plot lines that he has, and it's just like, oh yeah, he's just smoking marijuana nonstop like the whole time. It's like, yeah, that's funny where he's like, oh yeah, I can't believe I could like put so many people in jail back in the day for this drug.
Right.
Like,
well, and he has severe PTSD, and he refuses to deal with it because he's such a toxic masculine piece of shit.
Yeah, well, yeah, because he's so representative of that like traditionalism and toxic masculinity from eras that are long ago, and there's Soldier Boy, there was like that one scene too where he was opening up about his personal backstory to Butcher for a little bit, and he was telling him like, oh yeah, my father was always disappointed in me and he always wanted me to be a man, so I went out and I got the booster, and then I came back to him when I was a superhero, and he was disappointed in me for taking a shortcut to become a man. And it's like, ooh, that kind of that I could see how that could sting. But then it's like, it is interesting because it's like a cycle of toxic masculinity too, because he has a son, Homelander, and then when he's talking to Homelander, he's like, I'm so disappointed in you. It's like, why would you say that to him? Like,
because he's an insecure, like he's insecure and he's just so obsessed with what people think about him, and he just doesn't respect that because that's not part of that element of toxic masculinity. Like the older era is like, I don't care what anybody thinks about me, I'm a real man.
Yeah.
And Homelander's more modern one is well, and it comes from Homelander's insecurities because he never had parents and he was raised in a lab. Like he wants to be loved and admired. One little attention to detail that I loved with Soldier Boy is when Huey's like, dude, you have PTSD, you need to deal with it. He's like, I don't have shell shock. Because that's what they called it back then, and they didn't start calling it PTSD until I just looked up 1980, which would have been after Soldier Boy was in ICE. So he called it shell shock because that's what they called it back in World War II and after. So just a little nice detail.
Yeah, that was a neat little thing.
But yeah, definitely.
And one of the great things about Soldier Boy's performance too is that it gave us a little bit more of some insight into MM's plot or his backstory too. Because we've gotten like some glimpses into who he is, and like, oh yeah, I think he's probably got like OCD and some other stuff like that. But like it was interesting to just kind of learn a little bit more about why he was so adamant about being one of the boys and supporting this mission to get rid of all soups. And it was nice to just have that reasoning in there.
Well, we get the origin of his OCD as well. And that's from that incident where Soldier Boy killed his family, and that was of collateral damage too, right? He wasn't even targeting them, from what I remember.
Oh yeah, he like
threw a car through their house.
Yeah, he just killed them. Yeah,
which again like plays into the whole collateral damage of superheroes in this world. Like the whole story started with Huey's girlfriend getting fucking obliterated by A-Train.
Yeah.
And but yeah, just really interesting stuff all around with Soldier Boy. He was a really interesting character, and I do hope he comes back in season 4 in some capacity.
Yeah,
he's too good of a character to not have around. But even like Homelander, it's like you can still see the humanity in him. It's like the show doesn't treat its villains as like not people. They're all human beings, and we can see why they are the way they are. For him, it was his toxic father that he inherited all of those traits from, and he's from the like early 20th century, so he's a bit of a bigot. But like under the right circumstances, like that type of person could be helped and rehabilitated and become a like functioning member of society. But he's not interested in that, and that's not the world that they're in. So,
unfortunately,
yeah. But let's talk about Frenchie and Kimiko a little bit, because they had sort of their own little side story going on. Kimiko loses her powers from Soldier Boy. That's something he can do at this point, I guess. It
was neat. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting dynamic to bring into the play because, Kimiko, I think she was always like, she never really wanted her powers, and like throughout the past 2 seasons, she hasn't had a chance to really speak at all. So it's all been through the hand sign language that she created. And all that. I mean, it was nice to get to know a little bit more about her brother in the last season and the tragedy of their family. But yeah, it was, she never wanted these powers. And now that she got rid of them, it kind of presented this whole new opportunity for her.
Right. She could live a life, like a normal life. I love the dance number that we get
the
in the
dance
hospital.
number is cool.
I thought their kiss was really cute. And then it gets really sad because she thinks he freaks out and runs away, but he gets kidnapped by little Annie. What was her name again? Oh, little Nina.
Little Nina. Yeah.
Yeah. And that really touches on we get a lot of character development for Frenchie this season. We learn like sort of why he is the way he is, how he's naturally sort of been subservient to people, and he really learns to stand up for himself by the end of the season, which was nice to watch.
That.
And Kimiko gets she gets her powers back courtesy of Starlight stealing some compound V from Vought, but she's getting them on her own terms now, and she has a reason to want them to like help people. I thought it was sad, but it was nice,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I always loved Frenchie, and he had some great banter with Mother Milk this season too. Like they always do. They always have good back and forth, and I like Frenchie. He's a funny character.
But he also gives MM that really great pep talk when MM is down because his daughter saw him like hitting her stepdad, and then he's like, you have to be open with your kid. Like you are all of these bad things, but you're also a really good person and caring, and like you're giving your life to this mission, and you need to let her see that too. Just a lot more like there's a lot about like being honest, I guess, about who you are this season as well. And Huey had to deal with a little bit of that too, because Huey, and we'll get to it more in a minute, but Huey was really dealing with a lot of toxic masculinity himself this season, and we'll touch on that in a bit. But well, actually, this next topic kind of transitions into that. So the temp V is a big part of this season, and that is it's compound V that makes you a soup, but for only 24 hours. And Butcher and Huey start taking it. That introduces a lot of really interesting questions, and it differs from the comic book. In the comic book, all of the boys, I think, take it all the time, and it's a pill, and there are like no consequences for it.
Oh, interesting. So, okay.
I think this is much more interesting than that.
Oh yeah, like this is it presents an interesting moral debate, of the boys want to get rid of superheroes in the world because they're monsters and they live above the law. But then it's like, how far are you really willing to go to reach your end goal and get rid of these superheroes? Like, how far are you willing to go to get revenge? Like, and see the mission out through the end. And it's like, some people are willing to just kind of sacrifice everything, like Butcher. And I mean, Huey to a certain extent, but Huey didn't really know about the side effects. But Butcher, he continues to take Temp V after he feels terrible, and like after he has these kind of like side effects, and then like he learns that it's literally gonna like kill him. But he continues to take it, and it's just because he really hates soups, and he'll kind of do
Homelander
anything.
specifically.
Yeah, Homelander specifically, with good reason, very good reason.
But on that note too, of how far are you willing to go? Like he makes a very deliberate choice early on in the season that his revenge takes priority because MM has beef with Soldier Boy, but Butcher wants to use Soldier Boy to kill Homelander. So he drugs MM and makes him pass out so that he can team up with Soldier Boy. So it's very much like, how like stories always talk about revenge. It's like, there's the like he who seeks revenge should dig two graves thing. There's that one, but then there's also like what is it from? It's like be careful when staring into the abyss, because if you stare long enough, the abyss stares back. Nietzsche. It's like it is like that, because Butcher is becoming the very thing that he hated in a lot of ways, and he always kind of was that, but it's more literal this season.
But yeah, it is an interesting thing, especially since like Butcher eventually makes the decision for Huey of like, you're no longer going to have any Temp V, but he doesn't communicate the reason why. He just knocks Huey out and leaves him there, which is an interesting way to like say no, be like, no, I'm protecting you and getting you out of this.
Right. It really it really takes, we get a good dive into Butcher's like past and his mindset, and I think that plays the reason he did that, I think, is because he has Annie calls him and tells him like, this is killing you both, you need to stop, and he doesn't tell Huey. He's like incapable of doing that. And then that episode ended, and I'm like, oh my god, this is really dark even for Butcher. He's going full villain at this point with that. But the interesting thing about it is like, no, he's not going to let Huey go down this path, but he's and you can see how he's projecting his guilt about what happened to his little brother onto Huey, but he can't like get over his toxic personality. So the only way he knows how to protect Huey is to just like assault him and leave him in a bathroom.
Yeah.
But he does, like, he saves Huey's life, but he does it in the most toxic way possible.
Well, yeah, and it's like he is kind of, in a way, protecting someone he loves. But yeah, it is, you could have just locked the door, like locked him in the bathroom and like, all right, done. But that's not Butcher's style, and that isn't the most effective way in his mind to protect him. And to a certain extent, we were kind of talking about cycles earlier too, with the toxic masculinity and Butcher's father influencing him and all this other stuff. And now he sees a reflection of his little brother, or was it his little? I can't remember. But
it was his little brother, in Huey.
He sees a reflection of his brother in Huey, and he's like, "Well, I have another opportunity here." So then he kind of, to a certain extent, breaks that cycle by knocking Huey out. He makes a little bit of actionable change there, and now Huey is really the only one left in the group who's really like, yeah, Butcher, I believe in Butcher. Everyone else kind of hates him by the end of the season. But
I think Huey dislikes him too, but he's like, we save everyone, even the people who don't deserve it. And I think Butcher's part of that. But we also see Butcher is having a little bit of growth in that regard, but it's too little too late, because Butcher's method of protecting people is to violently push them away. And he does that to Ryan at the beginning of the season.
True.
And pushes Ryan right into Homelander's arms, completely failing Becca.
That was
at this
sad.
point. Like, she protected that kid from Homelander for years, and Butcher fails very quickly because he just can't. He's not emotionally mature enough to handle it, and he fucks up. But yeah, and talking about Huey too, he's able to bring himself like back from the brink almost. And I really love that, because he throughout the season, he's really dealing with this toxic masculine element where he wants to save Annie. Because he feels emasculated because his girlfriend is a fucking superhero legend and he's just some dude. And he keeps putting himself in danger and doing stupid shit to try to save her. And in the finale, there's that great moment where she's in trouble in that room, right? And he has the temp V and he looks at it, and then he takes a second, and instead of jumping in to be the hero himself, he finds a way to uplift her instead. So he chooses positivity and support rather than being the focus of attention, and that's a really mature character beat. So
yeah, I would absolutely agree there. Yeah, that was an interesting point too, of like, yeah, he could have joined in, but it would have meant the end of his life. And yeah, he instead thinks for a second and says, wait, there's another way. It doesn't have to be about me. It can be, the focus can be on someone else. And I appreciated that too. I thought that was really
and it's just an element of trust. It's like, if I do this for her, she's got it covered. And that's good. That's good growth for him.
Yeah, I 100% agree. One thing that I gotta touch on here too. We still got plenty to talk about in this episode, and so nowhere near the end just yet. But one thing in this, like, we've kind of talked about it too before, but this show just excels at humanizing people and making us empathize with them at all times. Like, even with Homelander, like we were just talking about, not just like the superheroes, but also the individual characters. And it definitely showcases that people aren't just good or bad. They're not just, the world's not black and white. It's complex. It's people have layers. They're like onions, just like Shrek told us. And it's like a Black Noir, I think, is one that I think we definitely need to talk about a little bit, or at least I need to talk about, because this his backstory this season just kind of hit me really hard. It was such a great way to humanize him, because in the past 2 seasons, when he's been on screen, he's just been a ruthless killing machine. He's just been nonstop, just action. Doesn't matter. I don't have any lines, but I'll beat the shit out of you. I'll kill you.
Yeah.
And I won't even blink an eye. And like, he's a piece of shit. That's really what it's been built up in these past 2 seasons from all the shit that he's done. But in this season, he has a small little arc, and it really humanizes him. It shows that deep down, he's a deeply traumatized person.
Oh yeah.
Both physically and mentally. And it made me feel for him, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, he's straight up an abuse victim. Like he was like in the 70s, I think, is when all the stuff in South America happened, which it another political element. The show touches on US interventionism in South America in toppling governments, our signature move as a country. Yay, CIA. So good.
Thanks,
oh my god.
Guys.
But it's like, so he had an opportunity with his career to like be a big name, and Soldier Boy beat the shit out of him and told him no.
Yeah.
And I loved his little like animated characters who talked to him.
Yeah.
And it made his death so sad.
I know.
Like I was genuinely upset when he died. It did a lot of legwork in making us care about that character.
Yeah. And it really showed that, like, beneath this faceless facade where, you don't know what he's thinking or how he's feeling or anything like that. Like, beneath all of this tough exterior, he's this insanely lonely person who doesn't have friends in the real world.
Kevin.
Kevin's Tale, he's here to join me. But he's all of his friends are these imaginary cartoon characters, and I mean, I think the only real true friend that he has in real life is Homelander, and even then, I don't know if I'd consider him a friend. He's kind of more just a work colleague who's really close.
I think Homelander views him as an effective tool.
Yeah.
And when he is no longer useful, he is cast out. With a hand through the chest.
Yeah, poor that death. I mean, I heard a lot of people were like freaking out about it, like that this was like, oh, they built him up and everything, and like he gets killed off in this like horrible way. It's like blue balls, for some people. And like, well, if you're thinking that, you weren't paying close enough attention to the story, because to me, Black Noir's arc in this season, at least his death, was very reflective, kind of what you were just alluding to, of how fascist leaders and authoritarian leaders operate. The minute a loyalist steps out of line, they are removed from the equation, regardless of how long they've served or been loyal. Like, just look at any dictatorship that's ever existed. You look at North Korea, you look at Venezuela, you look at Saddam Hussein in Iraq, like, or even I can't remember the dictator's name in South Africa, but you look at all these dictatorships that have happened in the past century, and they all follow this similar theme of someone messes up one time, they lie one time, they say they make one comment about the leader or his family, and they are removed from history. They are expunged from photos. Like, it's insane. And Black Noir's character, his death, it was really, it kind of made me think of that. Like, he died because he didn't tell Homelander one thing, but the rest of the series, he did everything that was ever asked of him.
Yeah, and I think there's that scene towards the end of the season where I think Ashley, the Deep, and A-Train are all having that same realization, because he just has Noir's little helmet sitting right next to him when he's telling them about that. And two interesting things about that. One, in universe, Vought I have heard will be recasting Black Noir, so the public will not know.
Of course,
they will be putting someone else beneath the Black Noir mask, which is very interesting. And the other interesting element is, do you know what Black Noir is, the comics? Okay.
No.
So in the comic, and apparently the comic, from what I've heard recently, is like not good, which is very funny. It's apparently like Garth Ennis just fucking hates superheroes, and the comic is like very edgy and like violent in a way that doesn't serve the story or the characters as well. Like Starlight and Huey don't even know what each other are doing for like the majority of their time in a relationship. And the biggest change is so Homelander does all this like heinous violent stuff, and at the end he sees all these like, but he doesn't remember doing it, and he sees like pictures of all the stuff he's done, and he's horrified by it. And the twist is that Black Noir in the comic is a clone of Homelander. And every like really bad thing that Homelander did, it was actually Black Noir. I'm glad they made the change they did in the show, because
me too.
Homelander is a far more interesting character than what I understand him to be in the comic, to me. In the comic, apparently he's just like really stupid and kind of gets duped into taking over the government. in this he's much more nuanced than that, I think.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I didn't realize that about Black Noir. I'm glad they took the direction they did with Black Noir and Homelander too. It's interesting. I didn't realize that.
But and you have a note here about Homelander reminding you of Trump ousting officials when they step out of line.
Yes.
And you're right, that happened all the time. Speaking of Trump officials that were ousted, Steve Bannon's going to jail. Let's go. He got convicted.
Excellent news.
We'll see how long that actually stays.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
But yeah, and The Boys does have a really great ability to create these like iconic things or moments that just stick in your head, like the Black Noir you mentioned.
Yes.
They episode 1, really, you remember that meme about well, why doesn't Ant-Man just go up Thanos's butt and get really big?
Of course.
Well, the boys remembered that meme because an Ant-Man type character goes inside a guy's dick and then he sneezes and gets big, and it's
traumatizing. It's
traumatizing. That man's penis explodes.
That's got to be the worst pain for a second, and then you're dead.
It's so gross and it's so funny. And then when the boys come in and he's all small, they throw him in a bag of cocaine and OD him by shaking him around.
Just like, we got him that time.
And then I don't know if you noticed, but in the Herogasm episode, another iconic scene from this season,
that one was
Homelander, the little termite guy, he's there, and Homelander just steps on him and he dies.
Yeah, I did notice that. He's like, help me. Please, someone help me. Doesn't care. You're dead.
Yeah. But speaking of Herogasm, which we'll talk about more too, but Herogasm meets Temp V in that great fight scene between Homelander and Butcher, Huey, and Soldier Boy. It was awesome. And Homelander is so scared and surprised. He's just like, he obviously like thinks he's got the biggest dick in the room, which he doesn't, because there's the guy with the like 6 foot long penis.
Yeah, that guy.
But he walks in and then he gets his shit rocked by these people that he wasn't ready to fight. And that was a really good sort of like, oh, how the turntables.
Yeah, I really liked that. I thought that was an excellent fight scene. And it was definitely, you could see it in this moment in his eyes, like the realization, like, what the fuck was that? Like, you just laser beamed me. Like, holy shit. But
and then when they all like have him pinned down and you can just see the panic in his face and he runs away.
Yeah, that was just such an excellent scene. I really enjoyed that. But yeah, the series in general, it does have an uncanny ability to create these situations that just kind of stick in your head for days, if not weeks. You know, I was definitely thinking about Black Noir for a while. All those scenes of his, that was traumatizing. But yeah, or some of the earlier scenes or like seasons too, like Robin getting killed by A-Train, like first episode, that stuck in my head for a while. And then like, I don't know if you remember this as much, like the Deep has an interesting story arc throughout this very seasons too. Which we don't really need to talk about, you know, because he's kind of a piece of shit too.
I think his story is very interesting because you have the note here about him getting sexually assaulted, and he does, but his first notable act in the show is him sexually assaulting Starlight at work. And we'll talk about this more when we talk about A-Train in a bit, but a better person than the Deep might empathize when he becomes a victim himself. Because he is a serial abuser, a sexual abuser, but he doesn't. He sees no error in his ways. And I know. And I love the Deep storyline because it looked at first like they were trying to do a redemption for him, but they're not. They just make him more and more and more pathetic every time. Mm-hmm. And I love that. He's a pathetic little shit.
It is. Yeah.
He's a bootlicker. He's a bootlicker for Homelander, and he's a little shit heel, and he's going to die horribly at some point, and it's going to be really satisfying. Like, he's bad at his job. He sucks. He didn't stand up for his octopus friend.
Yep.
He ate him. That was a traumatized. Yeah. That was a scene that'll stick with me too.
Oh yeah, that's like stuck in my head. Yeah, that was
like deep. Eat fucking Timothy.
Yeah, it's like, oh my god, shit. But that scene of him eating his friend was traumatizing. And the first season he gets sexually assaulted of like someone putting their hand up his gills and
his gills. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that kind of stuck with me for a bit. Like, oh my god, can you just imagine how that would feel in real life if you had like openings into your lungs? Like, if someone did that? Oh my god.
Yeah. But speaking more of social commentary and fake corporate commodification of social commentary and social causes, let's talk about A-Train and Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, that was such a big part of the season, and A-Train's like story too is interesting because you are hoping that he'll turn a corner, kind of like the Deep, and learn from his mistakes and make
not
some
like the
progress.
Deep. Like the opposite of the Deep.
Well, what I'm talking about are hopes for the Deep. Like he makes.
I
that
hope
change.
The Deep dies. I'm
trying to be idealistic here.
Okay. Okay.
Like, I'm not saying I want the Deep to succeed, but like, you know, it is kind of like kind of the same thing with A-Train. Like, I do kind of want to see him become a better person, but like
A-Train, I do. Because A-Train has a very interesting arc this season, because he starts out fully self-obsessed, and he's like, he can't run anymore because his heart's fucked because of the drugs he was taking at one point. And so he's trying to find a way to like revitalize his image. He's like, I could go back to Africa and like get in touch with my roots, and I'll change my costume and everything. And they're like, are you fucking kidding me? No. Yeah. And he changes his costume to like the traditional colors of the country he's from, and it's so pandering and it's so transparent. And even Ashley is like, oh my god, what has he done?
Is that a video game about the slave trade?
I forgot about that part.
He's like, yeah, it is. It's like, oh my god, no.
But he's trying to do what Vought does for everything, right? And it reminded me a lot of last season, how they commodified Maeve's sexuality, and we're trying to make a whole PR push about it. And remember, there's that scene where Maeve's ex-girlfriend is like forced into a relationship with her again, and they're talking about all this like gay stuff for Maeve, and she's like, Maeve is bisexual, right? And they're like, yeah, but we focus tested it, and just lesbian just tests better, so we're just gonna go with that. It just really lays bare how disingenuous all of it is.
Oh yeah, and like how misinformed it is, and how like people think that they're supporting a movement or a demographic and being positive about it and putting a positive spin on it, but it's like, you're not really doing anything. Like,
right.
Ashley made a comment about like Black Lives Matter, where she was like, my whole Instagram feed is just BLM.
Black
it's just
squares. Oh my god.
It's just the black squares. And it's like, the black squares were not. No, you missed the point. The black squares weren't the point. It was not like
Yeah, well, and it also reminds me of remember in season 1, when the Starlight comes forward with her story about how the Deep assaulted her, and they kick the Deep out of the Seven, and the two men come to Starlight, and they're the costume department, remember, and they make her that new suit, the really like revealing sexualized one, and they're like, it's about like your empowerment and what you're going through, and she's like, how do you know what I'm going through? Like, there are scenes like that in every season, and it's so great. It's just like so ruthless in how it cuts into corporations and just like owners of capital in using social causes to increase their profits, which is what they're doing. But
yeah, it's really potent. I keep saying that word, but it's so true. And A-Train has an interesting arc this season because his is like very closely aligned with the Black Lives Matter movement, and it's really about his beef with Blue Hawk, who is
a cop.
Who is Blue Hawk. I wonder what that means. Blue Hawk. That could be
the most cop that ever copped.
Yeah, he's even got the mustache, and he's like, when he's doing the police report and everything, it's like, or the media report.
Doesn't he say Blue Lives Matter at some point?
He says Soup Lives Matter.
Yes, that's what it is.
Soup Lives Matter. And like, it's, A-Train starts having this beef with him because he's trying to reconnect with his roots. He goes and talks to his brother, and he's like, well, you should talk to this guy in your community. Use your influence and your power and your positioning to actually make a difference and spark some social change, because Blue Hawk has been disproportionately killing or incarcerating Black people in neighborhoods, and
and what his brother wants him to do is like go to Vought and get them to put this guy in, like bring him to heel, basically.
Yeah.
A-Train has a different approach. Well, I guess he tries that first, right?
He kind of fumbles it, but I think it's also, Ashley was like, I don't really want to deal with this, so I'm gonna have him try and deal with it and have that difficult conversation,
That's right. And then he brings Blue Hawk to the like community meeting, which goes very wrong. And this is where A-Train's arc really gets interesting for me, because up until this point, it's all been about him, right? It's all been about him and his image and him trying to maintain his spot in the Seven. And that scene is where it starts to shift a little bit, because it gets personal.
Yeah, it gets personal. And, I think it is interesting because A-Train is, when Blue Hawk kind of comes into that room to have that conversation with them, it's like A-Train's clearly not prepared enough or educated enough to take on this social fight and kind of speak up in this position. Like, he's been in this position of power and privilege for so many years. And I think he doesn't understand what it's like to be his brother or be someone in his community who is Black and is underprivileged and underserved. And it's just, it's downright impossible, I feel like, for him to understand their struggles when he's been so disconnected for so long.
Right. And he's basically a god as well.
Yeah. He's not, he's not like them, but he is to a certain extent too.
But and then after Herogasm, he his brother gets fucked up, like paralyzed. Paralyzed. And A-Train gets super mad, and he goes and murders Blue Hawk, and it works out pretty well for him ultimately, because he gets Blue Hawk's heart and he can run again. But the thing that I really liked, and why I think A-Train is a slightly better person than other people in the Seven, is he apologizes to Huey. And it was genuine, because he understands now. He has experienced a loss at the hand of superhero collateral damage, and it felt to me like he was genuinely like, I now understand how badly my fuck up hurt you, and I'm seeing you as a person because I'm relating to you on this experience. It's like, took you long enough, dude. Like, it shouldn't be that hard to understand, but he's getting there. Like, he is unlike the Deep. A-Train is growing a bit.
Yes, he's growing a little bit. But the decision to kill Blue Hawk, like, even though he does have that emotional maturity to apologize to Huey because of his losses of Popclaw and his brothers, livelihood and members of his community.
Mhm.
His decision to kill Blue Hawk is a mistake. It's
Okay.
great for him
Yeah.
because he gets the heart and he can return to his privileged position and enjoy his
Mhm.
powers again down the road. But his decision to kill Blue Hawk, represents his an inability to create social change, an
Mhm.
inability to see the larger picture, and he basically sacrificed true justice and also his identity
Yeah.
for this privileged position just to get this little bit of vengeance. But
Mhm.
like, he took that away from his brother. He took that away from the people in his community to actually see this guy get locked up. Was Blue
Right.
Hawk ever going to get locked up? Probably not, because he's a cop. But it like, that's how it should have gone. He should have been
Right.
thrown in jail, and
Yep.
should have been a whole public display.
And I mean, Vought would have protected Blue Hawk, probably, maybe not because he was like a low level guy, but also the narrative of what happened is like they covered it up. They covered up what really happened. So Blue Hawk now in the public consciousness just died of some unrelated thing. And also, you're right, because like the oppressed group is never looked on kindly by society when they fight back violently. And like, even when it's totally justified, like,
yep,
it
well, yeah, no one liked Blue Hawk, and everyone was like, yeah, he should totally die, but it's not like that wasn't the right thing to do. And
it's about the framing. It's about the framing of it. And his brother, A-Train's brother, is aware of that. A-Train is not. And I mean, like, looking at Black Lives Matter too, you can see that so clearly paralleled in our world, because so many people are like, well, I support the cause, but they really should be protesting peacefully. Like, they shouldn't be burning down the Target. And it's like, well, police shouldn't be murdering them either. And maybe that's a little bit bigger deal than the Target that is insured. But yeah. And that's why a lot of the actual protesters held people back from destroying property, because like A-Train's brother, they know how the media again will spin that. They will take that one thing and that will be the story until the end of time.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's true. And I think A-Train's arc this season is also somewhat reflective of the Black Lives Matter movement on some fronts. The movement obviously has not failed, and there's still a lot of progress.
It's still going too.
It's still going, yeah. But I think there is a part of me that would argue it's stalled a little bit, and it's not necessarily because of the movement and any failures of the movement or anyone in the BLM. I think it's it's a lot of factors. I think it's climate change, and there's
the system.
There's the system, and there's other things that we need to focus on too. And reproductive rights is also something that deserves its own spotlight in the public too. So I think and also because Black Lives Matter rose up to such international fame, everyone knows what it is now. Blue Lives Matter rose
to counter it. Like all reactionary movements, it is a reaction to social change and progress. Like, yeah, it's like Blue Lives Matter, White Lives Matter. That's all fucking bullshit, of course. There are no blue lives, by the way, if you were wondering.
Yes.
Because being a cop is a job. It's not you as a person. And also, more people die per year who work in landscaping than in the police force. So keep that in mind.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and the leading cause of death for cops in 2021, I think, guess what it was? It was COVID. Oh no, because they didn't want to get vaccinated. What was the second leading cause of death for cops? Car accidents, because they run fucking red lights and die. The third one, I believe, was death by friendly fire.
So yeah, we should probably say Blue Lives Matter to the other cops so they know not to shoot each other.
Yeah, but I think this also ties back to what we were saying earlier. Like, this was a real, genuine social movement that was then hijacked and commodified by the corporations and the government, because the government does not want to defund the police. The government does not want to reform the police seriously. So they compromised. They compromised and pushed half-assed legislation where they did anything at all. And in fact, in most cities, increased police budgets.
So it's messed up.
Yeah. So next time someone tells you, see, crime is up because we defunded the police, we fucking didn't. No city in America defunded the police. Not one. Maybe one, but like it didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, some changes took place, but there's
very
still
incremental and small. Yeah,
very incremental. Yeah, the system is slowing the progress down, so we just need to keep at it. And in terms of the boys, I hope I don't know, because I do want to see A-Train's character continue to grow a little bit in this next season. So I'm wondering if they'll continue that Black Lives Matter narrative for him, or if they're gonna like start something new in the next season. But I can go either way with him.
I do believe, and we're doing predictions later, but I'll throw this one in now because I didn't have it written down. Like I think he has already worked with them briefly in previous seasons. Like of the remaining members of the 7, I think A-Train is the most likely to defect and start helping, because he is now seeing the other side of the coin a little bit, and he's displayed empathy for once.
Yeah.
But
Make it some movement.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about some more fun stuff. The pop culture commentary about it. We talked about the Snyder Cut parody a little bit already.
Thought that was funny. The commentary on the superhero culture is always nice to see, and it is funny to poke some jabs at Marvel and DC too. It's always fun. But yeah, I think the show it does this great job of highlighting how we idolize celebrities and athletes, and to a lesser extent some politicians, I suppose,
and even fictional superheroes.
Yep, even fictional superheroes. Yeah. But because everyone in the world except for the boys and some smart people in the boys, they idolize the soups of the world. Everyone loves Homelander, everyone loves Starlight and all that stuff, but these people are complex and they're also moronic, and it's kind of like what we were saying too, of like people forget that those people in the spotlight, like celebrities or athletes, they are people just like us. They have emotions, they have hopes, they have dreams, they have thoughts. They're not just this face in the news. People, they are like celebrities, they are brands, they're companies, we do tend to think of them as concepts, but they really are just like you and me, Dylan. Like they're
exactly, they're just normal
who need to eat food and go to bed and have dreams and shit.
Yeah, well, I think about this in college. There was a sort of a friend of a friend who I was taught. He was kind of wealthy and lived in like Beverly Hills, I think, and he knew a lot of younger movie stars who were like our age, a little bit older. And I remember he was just talking about hanging out with one of them, and I was like, "Oh, that's so cool that you know them." And he was just like, "I mean, I guess, but they're just fucking people, man." And it's such it's such an innocuous thing to say, because of course, but you're right. Like celebrity culture is so fucked up. The way like we, and it's weird to say because like they have these amazing lives and live in luxury and all this stuff, but it's like the way an average person, I think, looks at a celebrity or a movie star, it's like they love them and idolize them and put them on a pedestal until they fuck up once, and then they delight in seeing their lives ruined. And every element of what I just said is monstrously fucked up. Like it's like they're your little fish to watch in the fishbowl and then to shake and kill. And it's not, and it's like you have to think about the person's mental health because they are a human being as well. And also another note I just want to say, movie stars especially, they're very wealthy. A lot of them are millionaires, but when it comes to stuff we're talking about right now, like capitalism and class struggle and stuff like that, actors are working class, just like us. Wealth does not determine your class. It is your relationship to the means of production. And they are laborers, just like you and me. They just labor for much higher wages. One reason why they get such higher wages is because they have a really powerful union.
It all comes back.
It all comes back. Haha. But no, that I think that's important to talk about because Yeah, they are just people and they have their own shit going on, and you are not entitled to know what that shit is. So yeah.
Well, yeah, and just like what you were saying too, of like you make one mistake or you make one lapse of judgment in your entire decades-long career, and people will always remember you for it. Like Supersonic, you know, like in this season, him and Starlight dated at one point, and we didn't see that. We never knew about that. But then every time that Homelander talked to him or talked to Starlight about that, it was always just like, oh yeah, you guys used to bang, and like it was just like he would just give them so much shit for it and so much judgment, and like it's just like interesting how like one decision and if you're in the public spotlight, it's going to follow you around for the rest of your life, and it's like it's insane to think about.
Yeah, and it's like if you say one thing wrong, and I don't believe in cancel culture, I think that's pretty much bullshit. The people who complain about cancel culture usually are doing it on like national television to an audience of millions of people, which I don't know, if you used your brain, you would realize that that's a contradiction. But there is an element where you can be ostracized from your group that you're a part of, your ideological group, if you speak out of turn. And I think there are various like different ways you can speak out of turn. Like if you fuck up and you're like, oh shit, I'm really sorry, I will work harder and learn for next time. It's like that to me is what matters, right? And we shouldn't ostracize people who are trying to be better and trying to learn, because we're all products of our environment and we all start from some place and maybe we were not always correct. But if you're like, you say something and then people get mad at you and you're like, nah, fuck you. It's like if you're like a Dave Chappelle, right? Where you just make a really transphobic stand-up special for no fucking reason. And then people were like, yo, that was really transphobic. Why did you do that? And he's like, actually, no, it wasn't. And I'm right. I am a turf. And it's like, if you're like that, fuck you. But if you're just trying to like get better and learn, which I think most people are, it's like they're gonna fuck up. People are gonna fuck up. You got to you got to take that with a little bit of grace, I think.
Yes.
Or at least we do, because we have the privilege of not being harmed by those words. So I should make sure I throw that in there. But I want to talk a little bit about stakes too. I've mentioned this maybe on the show, but maybe elsewhere. This show is a really great example of what I like to talk about with stakes, because a lot of people will criticize shows that aren't like willing to kill off characters so much. But I'm like, The Boys barely kills off main characters, like at all. But the stakes are never low, right? Because and like I felt like Starlight's life was in danger throughout the entire season because she was in such proximity to enemies. But
100%.
But like it rarely kills off the main cast, but the stakes are still really high because the nature of the conflict is, how are they going to bring down this ubiquitous system? Like, how are they going to conquer capitalism, basically, is the crux of the show. Capitalism defended by superpowered people.
Right. Well, and I think this season does a good job of the stakes, like kind of playing them out and everything like that. But I think the last two seasons did a much better job with the stakes.
Okay.
Just because this season the playing field was a little bit more level with the temporary
with the temp V.
But but like in season 2, where like they're being chased, like the boys are being like hunted by the Seven basically, and like they're running through the sewer system or whatever.
Oh yeah, that was a great sequence.
They literally can't get away without one of them dying. Like it had like, Kamiko's brother like dies at the end of that, but it's like none of them have powers except for the two of them. They're just civilians running away from superheroes who have no like remorse, or at least one of them doesn't. And it's like that shit. That really was like high stakes there for me. But yeah, I think this show does a really good job of like showing that like death happens at random, and it did a good job of establishing that tone from like that very first scene with Robin's death, you know?
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
And I have seen quotes floating around that's like, The Boys is not the storyline of The Boys is not like an unjust, cruel one, like Game of Thrones was in a lot of ways. Like, just because Game of Thrones' main way of generating stakes was killing characters off, And every time a character was killed off, at least in the first 7 seasons or so, like you could look back at their character journey and see like, oh yeah, I see where they fucked up and how they died. But The Boys is not an unjust one. So it's like if a character is generally doing the right thing, the writers have sort of leaned into it's like we're not going to just murder them on a whim. Like good people will still die. Like Becca died last season. She didn't do anything wrong. But overall, it's not like a nihilistic story. I believe like eventually Homelander will die. The Boys will win in some capacity, I believe, by the end of the show. What that looks like, I don't know. But
yeah, I think it's going to be a half win, you know, like, they're going to get rid of Homelander, but I think it's going to be kind of one of those situations where it's like he's going to be just replaced by another fish, you know,
maybe
like Soldier Boy's going to get brought back or something like that, you know, and it's like he's just going to be replaced. But I don't know. But yeah, I hope at the end it does kind of reach that resolution of the good guys, or at least our guys, the boys, get some victory.
Yeah, I feel like tonally we will feel the victory even if it's not complete. I think it'll be something like the end of True Detective season 1, you know, where it's like they got the guy they were looking for. A lot of the higher up responsible people like got away, but it ends on a hopeful note, and I think the boys will as well, because it's not like it's not defeatist, I don't think. The characters usually come out on top at the end of the season. It's funny, and you know, they don't die all the time.
I mean,
but
yeah, that's a good one. I think we gotta do it. I think we gotta talk about that final scene of the season at least a little bit, because it is one of those scenes that, you know, I think a lot of people have been thinking about since they saw it, because it's just really powerful. So just to summarize the scene, Homelander is introducing Ryan to a crowd of his supporters, his loyal Homelanderians, whatever they're called. And, you know, one outlier citizen calls them fascists and throws like a water bottle.
Yeah, and he's wearing like a Starlight shirt or something.
Yeah, so he's a Starlight supporter, but like he's calling them out for fascists because they fucking are. Yeah. And Homelander then lasers the man's head off in front of this crowd of people, and everyone's stunned for about a moment, and then they applaud his actions. And Homelander comes to the realization he can get away with anything in front of his followers.
He said it earlier, and now he realizes how true it is. He can do whatever the fuck he wants.
Yep. He can get away with murder, and people will love him for it. And it is such a powerful scene. Oh my God. Like on numerous fronts. Like I keep thinking about it, and it's like, again, you can come back to it, pull something new out of it, and say, wow, you know, because it's like it's a clear depiction of like how authoritarians come to power. You know, they'll incarcerate, they'll dismiss, or otherwise eliminate any other competing parties that could pose a risk to their rule. You know, you kind of see this with you know, you can just look at any dictatorship really from like the past century and see that happening. Like even like after when Hitler rose to power, the Reichstag burned, and then immediately afterwards they just like basically gathered, it was kind of like the McCarthy hearings, where they just like got rid of a bunch of commies from the party, and then he seized control of the Nazi party. And it's like that's
that's how dictatorships start too, right? They start within the system and legally, and then they like Hitler successfully did, and like Trump tried to do, they seize power from there and hold on to it, and then their political enemies are eliminated. And then it accelerates much more quickly because they're in total control. It reminded me too of I don't remember if this is the exact quote, but during the campaign, Trump said, I could shoot someone in Times Square or something and still win the election. I was like, yeah. I mean, with your fan base, you could. And that's exactly what this scene, I think, is referencing, is that.
Absolutely it is. Well, yeah. And like this scene too, like we touched on it earlier too, when we were talking about populism and everything, but you know, he kills that guy, and then it's dead quiet for about 10 seconds, and then they start applauding him. Yeah, and it's that stupid father-in-law too.
The stepfather. I
hate that guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's like a Matt Walsh lookalike.
Yeah. But like, it just that scene, it just shows how quickly people will forget their humanity and their values when they're just like so fanatically engrossed by a ruler who looks like them, speaks like them, who presents themselves like them. It's just kind of it's a little bit of groupthink, but it's also like populism. And you're just like, he's my guy, and I'm gonna do what he says.
Right. And it's like the effect of sustained effective propaganda campaigns, like we talked about, from the media. I mean, it happened with, I mean, it's been happening in America for forever. Like, we grow up with a very specific vision of what our country is and what we do, and it's like, that's not really true.
But I know, yeah.
It's really ingrained into all of us from a very young age, and it's like, oh, certain things are omitted. We've talked about this on the show before. It's like, both of us learned about the Tulsa race massacre from Watchmen 3 years ago, and it's like, I'm sorry, why was that omitted from my education? I don't appreciate that.
It's bonkers.
It's like that. Our coups that we did in South America, which fucking John Bolton just proudly admitted to on CNN just a week ago or so. Did you see that clip?
I didn't. But
oh my God!
I believe you.
He was, Jake Tapper was interviewing him, and John Bolton's on there, and they're talking about January 6th because they're talking about the hearings, and then Tapper says like Trump or whoever was like kind of stupid for this, and then Bolton was like, well, no, he was probably pretty smart because, like, as someone who has planned coup d'etat, not here but other places, it takes a lot of work and planning, and Jake Tapper just didn't feel like following up on that.
Oh my God.
I was like, do you want to maybe ask him? It's like, oh, really? You've planned coup d'etat? Where? When?
Please tell me more.
I mean, and like a lot of this is declassified anyway, and we know, but it's like, that was brazen.
Yeah.
They don't care anymore. It doesn't fucking matter.
Right? Oh, that's terrifying to think about.
Yeah.
Well, and like with this, I'm gonna have to look up that clip later, but with this scene too, it shows that like people are willing to turn a blind eye when a demographic or a minority is being discriminated against, and it's not them. We saw it with the Holocaust. We saw it here in America with the civil rights movement. And it's like people are so perfectly willing to just be like, oh, it doesn't matter because that's not my political party, so I'm not going to pay attention to that.
Well, and you can even see it with the AIDS epidemic too. The AIDS epidemic, and they're fucking spinning it the same way with this monkeypox shit that's popping off. They're like, it's like, no, this is a gay disease. It's about men who are having sex with each other. It's like, no, it's not. But even if it was, like, fuck you, we should do something about it.
Yeah, like we shouldn't ignore it. It's like, it's still terrible because if he can just kill someone at will in front of me, what's to stop him from doing it to me tomorrow?
Yeah, and he's already fantasized about doing that, right? In season 2, I think there's a scene where it looks like he just mows down like 1,000 people, but it's still like in his mind. But and it's that poem about Nazi Germany too. It's like, first I came for the socialists, I did not speak up because I was not socialist. Then and it's like, yeah, man, you got and it's happening here too. And we talked about the like fighting the system. It was like we all rallied together in 2020 and we voted, we did our job, and we won the Democrats everything. And then regardless of that, the Supreme Court was like, oh yeah, we're gonna take away Roe v. Wade. And then our fucking vice president was just sitting in her chair. It's like, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? I don't know. I can't do anything. It's like, well, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you here? And there are things you can do. AOC lined them out for you. She's doing something. But it's like, it's like rights are just being rolled back one after the other, even though we won. It's maddening, and controlled opposition and all that. But it's like almost every single Republican in the House voted against protecting same-sex marriage like last week. Almost every single one.
Ugh, pieces of shit.
Yeah. And like Pete Buttigieg was on the news last night. He's like, I was just talking to these people a couple hours before, perfectly pleasant conversations, and they go and vote against this. I'm like, yeah, Pete, they hate you. They don't want you to exist. They want you dead. That's the reality. Like, take the blinders off, brother. Come on.
Yeah, right. Just open your eyes, please.
Yeah. And all this like moral panic stuff they do, it's all a mask. It's like, it's interesting. The like trans athlete debate that just stopped. They don't talk about that anymore because they don't have to. They're winning. They don't have to talk about that anymore. They're now just saying we shouldn't let people be trans. So yeah, fighting the system. But that's what this show is about. That's why we're diving so deep into all this.
It is, yeah. And I mean, one other thing I'll say on that final scene too is that, like, you know, just kind of, because I think the last couple frames it's on Ryan, and it's like Ryan is a kid, and he just learned a very terrible lesson, a very powerful, terribly lesson, terribly powerful, powerfully terrible about what he can do. He can do whatever he wants because he's Homelander's son, and it's like setting this expectation for, it's like, okay, yeah, populism is okay because it's me. And it's like, well, that's not great. And I thought that was just so powerful. It's such a great closing scene to the episode, and like I feel like people could just write a whole dissertation on like this scene or even just the whole series in general, but like it's very, very powerful.
It is. And the scary part is like he liked it.
He liked it. Yeah. It's not great. You saw him smile and it's like, oh no, this isn't good.
Yeah. All right, let's see predictions and thoughts for season 4 next season.
Yeah, so just kind of, I think you and I have talked about this too off of the podcast, but yeah, I think season 4 is going to be, Ryan's going to be a big focus of it, because clearly he's, you know, with him being Becca's son and Homelander's son too, and Butcher having some association with him, it's like, yeah, I think he's going to be a big center of season 4, but I don't know how much. What about you? Any predictions?
Yeah. Well, I saw it was a Captain Midnight video I was watching, and he made a prediction that I think, I don't know if it'll come true, but I think it'd be very interesting, is this season 4 will be Homelander at the height of his power, right? He has usurped Edgar and is now the head of the company, which is something we didn't even talk about, but that was interesting to watch as well. He's now the head of the company. He's made an alliance with Victoria Newman, who, courtesy of the Deep under coercion, is now the vice presidential candidate. So Homelander has basically will have an ear in the White House. I'm assuming, based on the narrative trajectory, that Newman and her presidential person are going to win. I wouldn't be shocked if that president guy dies.
Yeah, suspiciously from a head pop.
Yeah, but speaking of that, though, if he's at the height of his power, it does kind of make sense that maybe the season will end with him losing his power, meaning he gets depowered and becomes a normal person.
Oh, that would be so interesting.
And that is not my theory, but I totally buy into it, and I would like to see it, because
me too.
That would be such a wild direction to take his character. Like, who is Homelander if he's not Homelander? He gave up his secret identity. He doesn't have one. So who is he?
Yeah. Oh, that would be so interesting. Yeah, I hope that they do something like that. That'd be cool.
And I'm excited to see Annie on the team now that she's quit the 7. She's just a member of the squad now. She's
just the boys now. Yeah. And I'm interested because I know that they announced that Generation V show. And I heard that they're supposed to like be tangentially connected to the main show. Like somehow they're going to kind of weave it in. And I'm interested to see how that's going to go, to see if like any of the characters cross over, if the plot lines cross over, all that stuff. That'll be neat.
Yeah, I'm a little worried just in this era of like oversaturated cinematic universes, but you know, I'll watch it, I think. But I haven't watched The Boys Diabolical yet. I want to check that out, the little animated show. But
yeah, I need to check that out too.
I don't know. I'm just getting more and more hesitant of like spin-offs that I need to watch to get the full story of what I'm watching. It's like, can't it just be a show?
Yeah, why do I gotta watch all this extra stuff and read the expanded lore universe?
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope that they bring Soldier Boy back at some point too, because he was a fun character. And I don't know, he'll just be like, I feel like he's kind of like an ace in the hole kind of character where it's like, we need to bring him in for this fight with Homelander at the end or something like that. Like, he doesn't need to have much agency in the next season, but I would like to see him kind of have a role.
I think he needs to be a part of it. He was too interesting of a character to like put on ice literally for forever.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to see how it resolves, because like if they're not going to use Temp V anymore, which I don't think they are, nor should they. I think it served its purpose in the story, and I hope they don't develop it into the pill like in the comic book. Like, how do they win? I want to know how they win eventually. And I do think I think this show should go for season 4 and season 5 and then be done.
Yeah, I could see that. That's fine with me.
I also hope that the show just lets Maeve fade away. I like that Ashley has a little like micro redemption and deletes the footage of her escaping. And I think it's Maeve kind of redeemed herself at the end, and I hope she just gets to go live her life elsewhere. Because if she comes back, you know what's going to happen to her. She's going to get fucking eviscerated. So just let her live.
Well, especially since she doesn't have her powers anymore. So
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope so too, that they just keep her at bay. But yeah, very excited for the next season, because this show has just like hit every beat along the path consistently from the first episode. So yeah, very excited to see where it goes next.
Yeah. So before our next segment, any final thoughts on the state of current American politics? I mean, just kidding. Just kidding. Any final thoughts on season 3 of The Boys? We're done with politics, I promise.
Yeah, I'm good on politics for today. I think I think I said my piece. I mean, I think the only thing that we didn't touch too much on was like Homelander and his character development in the season, but you know, like there was some good stuff in there. Like they had the nice parallel scene of him like and the jumper, like how Superman has that scene with the jumper off of the building.
Oh,
like,
yeah. God, that was really, such a fucked up scene.
Yeah, where he was like, no, you have to jump now. Like, I'm telling you to do it. And it's like, oh, shit. Like, that was.
Yeah, she comes to the realization that she doesn't want to die. And
he's like, no, you have to now. Like, you.
It's so fucked up, because that Superman scene in the comic, it's so sweet. Like,
oh, yeah.
It's so touching. Nice. But yeah, Homelander's a psychopath.
Yeah, who just thinks about himself, and he's just talking about himself when he's trying to help someone get down. But yeah, I thought the character development was great, like for him, and you know, just all around across the board. It's everyone does such a great job on the show, from the writers to the actors to the cinematographers. Like, you know, I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, it's a great show. It's one of the best.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say I would agree with you fully. It's an amazing season. The entire show's great. And yeah, just the concept of Homelander gets a save on his birthday every year. It's plays into that cynicism.
Yeah,
so nicely. But all right, that's enough about The Boys. Let's talk about other stuff we've been watching or playing or reading. What have you been up to the last couple weeks?
So nothing crazy new or anything like that. But I did or what we do in the shadows has come back.
Nice.
I love that show about my favorite little group of vampires and their little mock-you documentary series. It's very fun. They're opening a vampire nightclub this season, which is
very cool.
it's very silly. I'm into it. And I've been breezing through Young Justice again. I restarted that. I think I've only got, unfortunately, like 5 episodes left in the 4th season. So I'm getting close to getting out of my content of Young Justice, which I'm jazzed about. I want more, but
yeah,
you know, it's fun. And we've the other night we were like, oh, we're just looking for something kind of lighthearted Pixar film, so we started to watch Cars. We didn't finish it, but man, I remember that movie being a lot better than it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not terrible. It's just like it's very.
It's not Pixar's best, but
yeah, it's not Pixar's best, but it's still kind of fun. And it's like, oh yeah, this is just. I wonder what's gonna happen next. Oh, he's just gonna find himself, and it's fine. It's not a bad movie, but we didn't finish it. We might finish it at some point soon. But what about you, Dylan? What have you been watching lately and doing?
A couple things. So I started playing God of War on PC, the most recent one where Kratos is a dad.
Nice.
And I'm really enjoying that a lot. It's really fun. I like the story so far. I'm not super far in. I think I'm like 3 or 4 hours in. But I've also been watching a lot of For All Mankind on Apple TV Plus.
You mentioned that to me.
Yeah, I was like, I had people over this weekend. I was like recommending it to everybody. I really like it. But it's a alternate Earth history where the Soviets beat us to the moon and the space race just never stopped. And it's great. It's speaking of the boys, Becca Butcher, she's one of the main people in it. Joel Kinnaman. Cool. Yeah, Joel Kinnaman from the Suicide Squad. He plays Rick Flag. He's in it. A bunch of other people you may recognize, but it's really it's a fun show, and it's interesting because it very much like touches on sexism and homophobia of the era, but it doesn't really fixate on racism as much, which I just find interesting. I wonder why. They probably didn't want to make any of their characters like explicitly racist, so they just chose to dodge that bullet. But it's a good show. I like it a lot.
Right on.
And I bought a flight stick, like a joystick and throttle on Amazon.
Cool.
It arrived yesterday. So last night I started playing Elite Dangerous a little bit, which is a massive space flight simulator where you can do combat, you can do trade missions, you can explore deep space. And the game world is huge. Like it's like a pretty decently sized recreation of the entire Milky Way.
Wow. That's expansive.
Yeah, but it's a very complicated game, and it will take a long time, I think, for me to really fully understand it. Because I was in the tutorial and I'm like doing all these things, and I'm like, it's like you need to like shift jam or something. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. The fuck does that mean? What do you want me to push? What button do you want me to push? And it wasn't giving me the button prompts, the buttons on the joystick. It was doing the keyboard keys. So I'm like, what? No. I was like, what joystick button do I fucking push to go to hyperspace? But I think I watched some like beginner's guides videos last night after I was done playing. And I think if I can get over the early learning curve, there's so much cool stuff to do.
Oh, right on.
Game. It's insane. So excellent. I've been doing that. But that's it for us this time. Mm-hmm. What are we doing next episode on? Dude, I think we have it's either Nope or Bullet Train.
Yeah, we were gonna decide between those two.
Yeah,
so it's gonna be either Nope or Bullet Train.
Yeah. I've heard Nope is really good. It came out this weekend. So we'll figure that out. We'll let you guys know. If you want to be safe, just go watch both of them. Yeah. But until and thank you so much for watching or listening and for putting up with our and mine more than anything tirades about politics. But yeah, thank you. Like and subscribe on YouTube if you want to. Share the podcast with a friend. Leave a 5-star review. And the support means a lot. Niles, where can people find you online?
People can follow me on Instagram at Niles Got No Styles. And yeah, we just appreciate everyone. Just want to echo that one more time. Dylan, where can people find you online?
On Instagram at DylanD1026, on Twitter at D-Day Movies, on Twitch at D-Day_movies, and on YouTube at D-Day Movies. Find the YouTube through the Instagram or Twitter, because if you look for me on YouTube, all you will find is World War II footage. I did not think this through, but that is what it is.
Oh, well.
Thank you all again so much. We will see you all in 2 weeks. Have a great 14 days away from us. Bye.
See ya. Bye.